My name was Amina. I was a devoted doctor, esteemed in my community, yet suffocated by the weight of tradition. In Lahore, Pakistan, the whispers of the Quran filled the air, intertwining with the unspoken expectations of my family. I adhered to the rules, navigating life as a dutiful Muslim woman, yet inside, I grappled with an aching void. Despite my skills and accomplishments, I felt a relentless emptiness. The spiritual hunger for something more profound called to me in silence. But my reality, shattered one fateful day, an accident left me lifeless on the pavement, caught between two worlds. In that moment, I drifted into a dark desert where shadows danced around me. Then he appeared, Jesus, with eyes alive with compassionate fire, called my name. In that sacred encounter, I glimpsed the truth hidden beneath layers of doctrine. He unveiled a spiritual battle that unfolded far beyond my consciousness, exposing the falsehoods shackled within the systems I had served. When I awoke, confusion clouded my mind. The world I returned to was no longer my own. I felt like a ghost haunting familiar hallways. I faced the harsh reality of rejection, from my family, from my community, and yet, the truth ignited a flame within. The fear of losing everything weighed heavily on my heart, but the pull towards the light was irresistible. I began to question everything I once held sacred, searching in quiet corners for the threads of faith that spoke to my spirit. Every scripture I read and every conversation I had whispered of hope. I discovered a brave new world, a hidden community of seekers who, like me, felt the weight of their past, yet yearned for something radically transformative. I felt a peace I had never known, blending into a family formed not by blood, but by belief, and that spark of belonging fueled my resolve to step into bravery. So here I stand today, no longer the woman I once was, but a vessel of a profound truth, aching to be shared. The shadows of doubt still linger, but I know I must press on, even if it risks everything. Join me as I unravel this awakening, revealing the path I walked from darkness to light, a journey of liberation in a world fighting against the very truth that every soul craves. Before we continue, I want to hear from you. Where are you watching from, and what time is it there? Your stories matter, and if you love Jesus or are curious about his truth, subscribe to Truth from Beyond now, because what you're about to witness is not just my testimony. It's a divine revelation waiting to impact your life. In the heart of a conservative neighborhood in Lahore, Pakistan, my life as a doctor was marked by the weight of traditional expectations. I was Amina, a 32-year-old physician admired for my dedication to my patients. Yet beneath the disciplined exterior lay a profound emotional emptiness that I could no longer ignore. I had devoted my life to helping others, but somewhere along the way, I lost parts of myself in the process. Each day I wore a mask of competence, smiling to reassure my patients, but inside I felt like an imposter wrestling with loneliness and unfulfilled desires. My journey took a sudden and unexpected turn one fateful day while treating a patient in the emergency room. As I was assessing the situation, preparing for what seemed like another routine case, I was struck by a wave of exhaustion that felt cosmic in its intensity. The antiseptic smell of the hospital faded into the background, and suddenly I found myself enveloped in darkness. In that stillness, a light pierced through, the kind that spoke of love and truth. It was then that I heard him call my name. Amina. The voice resonated within me, and I felt an indescribable warmth spread through my being. It was Jesus. In that moment, I was no longer in the confines of that hospital room. Instead, I found myself standing on sacred ground, a realm where clarity reigned and illusions of the world slipped away. Jesus stood before me, radiant and compassionate, and in his gaze, I discovered the light I had been yearning for. I felt the burdens of my life, the expectations, the fears, the loneliness, fall away as he revealed to me the deeper truths of existence. With each word he spoke, layers of deception that had clouded my mind began to dissolve, exposing the hidden agendas woven into the fabric of society. He guided me through visions that displayed how the elite wielded power, manipulating faith and societal constructs to create environments rife with division and fear. I witnessed how religion could be twisted into an instrument of control, stifling the spiritual growth of individuals and communities alike. Each vision struck me with the weight of urgency. The spiritual war unfolding around us was more than a struggle for beliefs. It was a battle for hearts and minds, and I realized it was my responsibility to seek truth and share it with others. As I returned to the present moment, I found myself gasping for breath in the emergency room, the sterile lights flickering above me. The revelation I had received transformed my outlook. I was no longer just a doctor fulfilling roles dictated by tradition. I was now a vessel of truth, armed with the desire to help others awaken to the realities that had long been concealed. I felt the gentle push of Jesus urging me to embrace my voice, to reach out to those around me and encourage them to question the narratives they had accepted without thought. In the days that followed, I was consumed by my newfound calling. Each encounter with patients became an opportunity to extend compassion and understanding, while gently challenging their beliefs. I began to speak about love, about the importance of connection and healing that transcended the confines of religious structures. The path ahead was filled with uncertainty, but that was overshadowed by the urgency to bring awareness to the hidden deceptions that persisted in our society. My journey of awakening had just begun, and I knew I had to be courageous in sharing the light I had been given, no matter the cost. As I engaged in my daily prayers, a creeping doubt began to surface, unraveling the fabric of the beliefs I had held so tightly for so long. I was Amina, a devoted Muslim doctor, respected in my community, and committed to my faith. Yet beneath the practiced rituals and outward devotion, I felt an unsettling emptiness, a spiritual void that echoed louder with each prayer I offered. It gnawed at me, a constant reminder that something was missing, and I found myself questioning the absolute truths that had defined my life. The dreams began shortly after. Each night, a mesmerizing light would fill my subconscious, beckoning me to explore a deeper reality. It was as if the light held secrets waiting to be unveiled, and I was left yearning to understand its significance. In those instances, I would awake in a cold sweat, feeling both terrified and drawn to this phenomenon. The light became a central focus, an enigma trapped in the shadows of my mind, challenging the very teachings I had embraced. I started to recognize that my life had been guided by a series of expectations and traditions, some beneficial, but many oppressive. The hidden agenda behind them began to reveal itself to me, obscuring the vibrant truths I yearned to uncover. Amidst the growing uncertainty, I attended a medical conference, where I was surrounded by colleagues who shared their experiences and convictions. It was there that a fellow doctor, seemingly composed yet deeply aware, sparked a conversation that would set everything in motion. He spoke of his own journey, of the struggles he faced with his faith, and how he ultimately found solace in a personal relationship with Jesus. The audacity of his story resonated within me, igniting a flicker of hope that perhaps I too could find truth beyond the confines of my religious training. As I pondered our conversation in the days that followed, the conflict within me intensified. I felt as though I was navigating a spiritual war, caught between the traditional structure that had shaped my identity and the light that yearned to break through the darkness of my doubts. I found myself silently praying for guidance, longing to feel that same light during my moments of solitude. The more I sought connection, the more I felt the weight of deception lifted, as if the act of questioning was a key to unlock the shackles of conformity. Then, in the midst of this struggle, I experienced an event that would alter my perception forever. During one particularly vivid dream, I found myself engulfed in the mesmerizing light I had encountered before, and this time, standing boldly within it, was Jesus. He called my name, each syllable resonating through the very core of my being. In that moment, I felt the love radiating from him, igniting a revelation that shattered the barriers of doubt. He revealed hidden truths about the world and the ways in which faith had been manipulated by the elite, how they perpetuated division and fear to maintain control over the masses. The urgency to awaken from the slumber of complacency reverberated through me, and I knew then that my journey had only just begun. The turning point in my life came unexpectedly on a day that seemed just like any other. I had just finished my rounds at the hospital, feeling particularly exhausted, when I decided to drive home. The world outside my window blurred as I navigated through the familiar streets of Lahore. My mind was occupied with thoughts of my patients, my responsibilities as a doctor, and the heaviness that had settled in my heart, an awareness of a spiritual void that I couldn't quite explain. Suddenly, Everything changed in an instant. A car sped through a red light and collided with mine, sending me into a spiraling darkness that swallowed my consciousness whole. When I finally awoke, I found myself in a realm that felt distant from my everyday life. I was in a dark desert, the expanse around me stretching endlessly under a starless sky. The air was thick and heavy, filled with an unsettling silence that seemed to amplify the confusion within me. I could feel the weight of my thoughts pressing down, as I realized my body remained in a hospital, unconscious in a world that had forgotten me. Struggling to comprehend my surroundings, I took a step forward, and suddenly, the landscape shifted. A brilliant light appeared in the distance, illuminating everything around it, and I felt an inexplicable pull toward it. As I drew closer, I was met by an overwhelming presence. I realized it was Jesus. His light enveloped me with warmth and love that I had never before experienced. In that moment, I surrendered to the peace that flowed through me, letting go of all my fears and doubts. Jesus looked at me with eyes of profound understanding, and without hesitation, he began to reveal the truths that had remained hidden from me. I watched as scenes unfolded before my eyes, visions of the spiritual war we face, one that extends far beyond the battlegrounds of physical conflict. I saw how manipulation and deception were intricately woven into our lives, how the elite used religion as a tool to maintain their control over the masses. He showed me the stark reality of how many had been kept in the dark, shackled by rigid belief systems that suppressed their spiritual potential. Each vision pierced through my understanding, filling me with urgency and purpose. My heart raced as he revealed how societies had been torn apart by the lies perpetuated by those in power, fostering division and fear instead of unity and love. The truth was not just a matter of faith. It was an awakening that called out to those willing to see beyond the surface of their beliefs. I understood then that my struggles were not solely mine. They were shared among countless others who felt that emptiness, a yearning for something deeper and more fulfilling. I felt Jesus' voice resonate within me, urging me to rise up and embrace my role in the awakening process. It became clear that my journey as a Muslim doctor was more than a profession. It was now a calling to help others break free from the chains of deception. The revelation of these hidden agendas left me breathless. I could no longer simply exist within the confines of my past understanding. I longed to share this awakening, to ignite the flicker of truth in the hearts of others, just as it had been lit in mine. The mission was daunting. I could face rejection, hostility, even isolation. However, the drive to advocate for love, truth, and spiritual freedom overrode any fear I held. Suddenly, I was drawn back to the reality of my body, the faint sounds of the hospital beginning to seep into my awareness. The weight of my mission settled over me like a mantle, and the realization of my purpose burned in my chest. I understood that this wasn't just a spiritual awakening for myself. It was about creating ripples of change in a world starving for truth. With every pulse of my heart, I knew I had to break the silence that had held me captive, even if it cost me everything I once knew. I was ready to step into that light, to embrace the awakening that had begun, and to carry it forward into the darkness that still loomed over so many lives. Upon awakening, I was thrust into a reality that felt like a waking nightmare. The moment I opened my eyes in the hospital, I sensed something had irrevocably changed. The physical pain was overshadowed by the emotional turmoil I now faced. I had been Amina, a respected doctor, a pillar of my community. Yet now, I felt like an outcast trapped in a life that no longer seemed to fit me. My near-death experience had revealed the presence of Jesus in a way I never expected, and with that revelation, everything I understood about faith and truth began to unravel. The stark rejection from my family loomed over me like a thundercloud, a constant reminder that I had deviated from the path of tradition. Guilt gnawed at my insides, intertwining with the liberating truths I had encountered. How could I reconcile the joy I felt in my connection with Jesus against the backdrop of familial disappointment? They had always upheld rigid beliefs, and I had been the loyal daughter, fulfilling every obligation and expectation. Now, I stood on the precipice of a spiritual war, grappling with the potential loss of those I loved most, all while knowing I could not turn back. I could see their disappointment etched in their faces, and the thought of facing their wrath terrified me. I was unsure how to navigate this newfound faith without tearing apart the fabric of my family. As days turned into nights, I couldn't escape the haunting dreams that continued to draw me closer to the light I had encountered. I found myself secretly delving into the tenets of Christianity, piecing together the messages that resonated with my spirit. Each verse I read from the Bible infused me with a sense of purpose, stirring a hunger for truth that I had long suppressed. The feelings of anxiousness and fear began to transform into an unquenchable thirst for knowledge and understanding. I sought the company of fellow believers who embraced the same awakening, eager to learn how to navigate my newfound reality. Every time I whispered a silent prayer, I felt Jesus near me, imbuing me with courage to confront the deviations of my previous beliefs. I realized I needed to share his love, the truth that challenged the deception I had once accepted as gospel. The revelation of how religion has been manipulated by the elite began to take root in my consciousness. I understood that the hidden agenda around faith often perpetuated fear and division, rather than unity and connection. This truth burned deep within me, compelling me to advocate for those enslaved by unquestioned traditions and practices. I longed to help others break free from chains they did not even realize were encircling them. Each encounter with colleagues and patients became an opportunity to embody the compassion that Jesus had shown me. I began weaving the truths of love, acceptance, and awakening into my conversations, encouraging others to explore their own doubts and questions. I wanted to bring light to those who felt the familiar emptiness I once did, to help them understand that there was more beyond the surface of their realities. Yet, the fear of potential backlash from my family still lingered, reminding me of the cost of this journey. I knew sharing my experience and the revelations granted to me could lead to alienation, but the urgency to speak out against the deception compelled me to move forward. Each day felt like both a risk and a calling, igniting a fire within me to embrace my role in this unfolding story of truth and liberation. As I embarked on my quest for truth, a profound sense of urgency consumed me. The collision of my identity as a respected Muslim doctor and my inner turmoil felt insurmountable. I began to explore the Bible, leafing through its pages with a mix of trepidation and hope. Each scripture I encountered resonated with an unfamiliar yet stirring familiarity, illuminating aspects of faith that had long been buried under layers of tradition and expectations. It was in these moments, grappling with deep-seated fears and cultural ties, that I decided to reach out to a clandestine group of ex-Muslim Christians. Their stories echoed my own struggles, revealing a path through the shadows of deception I had long endured. Connecting with this group marked a turning point in my journey. Through our discussions, I discovered a sense of peace that I hadn't felt in years. These individuals, having walked similar paths, shared their experiences of awakening and transformation. They introduced me to the idea that it was possible to embrace a new identity, without completely abandoning my cultural roots. The fear of losing my community began to dissipate as I recognized the strength in my newfound convictions. I understood that I could honor my heritage while simultaneously embracing the truth that Jesus represented. Each meeting became a sanctum where our doubts echoed freely, no longer suppressed by societal expectations. The conversations shifted from mere discussions about theology to profound reflections on the spiritual war that engulfed us. We dissected the hidden agendas that manipulative systems employed to sow division and keep us enslaved to fear. With every revelation, my comprehension of the world deepened, revealing how interconnected we all were in this struggle against the elite who sought to control our beliefs and lives for their own advantage. I felt the urgency of our mission, to awaken others caught in the web of deception that we had once lived. In those meetings, I began to experience the fullness of community. Again, albeit in a radically new form, the love and acceptance I found among my peers fueled the flame of my awakening. Jesus spoke to me through them, reinforcing the truth that transcended boundaries of culture and tradition. With each sharing of personal testimonies, I grasped how the essence of faith could unite us, regardless of our pasts. The comfort of knowing I wasn't alone in this journey filled me with renewed vigor. I discovered that embracing this truth didn't diminish who I was. It expanded my understanding of self and universe beyond the confines of fear and isolation. As I moved forward, I felt the weight of responsibility growing heavier on my shoulders. I knew I had to share my story, and the revelations I had encountered with others who might be struggling in silence, just as I had. The thought of confronting the truths I had come to accept filled me with a mix of excitement and trepidation. I understood that the journey ahead would be fraught with challenges, including potential backlash from my family and community, but the yearning to spread light and hope outweighed the fear of ostracism. The spiritual war continued to rage around me, and I was prepared to stand firm, to become a voice for the truth, ignited by the revelations of Jesus that had transformed my life. The awakening I had experienced was not just for me, it was for all those who remained in darkness, waiting for the opportunity to step into the light. Realizing my experience was more than a fleeting moment, I felt an undeniable calling pressing upon me. The encounter with Jesus during my near-death experience transformed my understanding of existence. It was a divine revelation, igniting a fire within me that demanded action. I was Amina, a Muslim doctor living under the weight of familial and societal expectations, but now everything had shifted. Despite the fear and uncertainty that lingered, I knew I couldn't remain silent. I had to share my story, to expose the truths I had encountered for others still lost in the darkness of deception. Stepping into this new reality felt both exhilarating and terrifying. The thought of confronting the spiritual war that raged around me filled me with urgency. I began to reflect on the hidden agendas orchestrated by the elite, subtly woven into our belief systems, designed to keep us complacent. I realized that what had once been a comfortable existence was now under scrutiny. The lens of truth had shattered my previous worldview, revealing the manipulation and control that had governed our lives. I knew that this awakening wasn't just personal, but also pivotal for my community, which often bowed to unchallenged authority. As I connected with others who had faced similar spiritual warfare, I found strength and solidarity. My discussions with ex-Muslim Christians brought clarity, reinforcing the idea that I wasn't alone in this journey. Each testimony shared illuminated the ways in which we had all been ensnared by fear and confusion, revealing how deeply rooted deception can cultivate a distance from true faith. The more I listened, the more I understood the call to action, urging me to step beyond my fears and into the light of Jesus' teachings. I began to see that sharing my experiences could also bring hope to those trapped by guilt and doubt, awakening in them the same desire to seek truth and purpose. The risks of my decision weighed heavily on my heart. Every time I considered discussing these revelations publicly, I felt the ghost of fear brush against my spine. How would my family react? What if my community turned me away, branding me a traitor? These questions pressed down on me, but the need to advocate for truth over tradition grew stronger. I embraced the urgency to enlighten others about the spiritual war that sought to keep us from realizing our divine purpose. As the days passed, I honed my message, preparing to use my voice to encourage a broader awakening. Then came the moment when everything changed once more. I organized a small gathering, inviting those who were questioning their faith and looking for answers. As I stood before the group, the buzz of nervous energy filled the air, but it transformed into something powerful as I shared my story and the revelations given to me by Jesus. I watched as their eyes widened in disbelief and curiosity, the flickers of recognition illuminating their faces. In that sacred space, fear dissipated and hope ignited. I realized then that each person present was grappling with their own version of my journey, their own spiritual war, and I knew I had a role in helping them navigate through it. The awakening was not just mine. It was a collective journey into the light, and together, we could begin to unravel the threads of deception that had long kept us captive. Taking the leap to flee my home was one of the most courageous moments of my life. I was Amina, a Muslim doctor who had built her life upon the foundations of tradition. Yet everything shifted when I experienced that profound encounter with Jesus. I could no longer deny the truth that had been revealed to me. The spiritual war I had been fighting within myself transformed into a full-on battle against the external forces that sought to keep me, and so many others, enslaved to the hidden agendas of the elite. The fear of losing my family weighed heavily upon me, but the promise of a new life dedicated to evangelization ignited a fire in my soul that I couldn't ignore. Leaving wasn't just a physical act, It symbolized my commitment to a new existence. Every step I took away from the familiar streets of my neighborhood was imbued with a deep sense of purpose. I carried the burden of my past, the traditions and expectations that now felt suffocating in light of the revelations I had received. I envisioned a life where I could help others like me, individuals who were grappling with their own doubts and struggles, finding themselves trapped in the same shadows I had navigated. My heart longed to be a beacon, a guide in the dark waters of confusion. As I settled into this new chapter, I sought out communities of like-minded believers who understood what it meant to awaken to truth in a deeply polarized world. Each gathering felt electric, charged with shared stories of transformation and awakening. I listened intently as others recounted their encounters with Jesus and the dismantling of the deception that had held them captive. I felt empowered knowing I was not alone. There were many of us standing against the currents of a society that sought to keep individuals separate from their true identities. This communion of spirits fed my soul, reinforcing the importance of community in the spiritual war we were engaged in. Through shared struggles, the burdens I carried visibly lightened. I began to realize that my personal journey was inextricably linked to a larger narrative. The elite had long fomented division among us, using manipulation and fear to keep us from experiencing the profound connection waiting on the other side of truth. I had been called to recognize these realities not just for myself, but to turn and reach back for others lost in the darkness. I felt a sense of urgency to speak out and share my insights, opening avenues for others to awaken and find their own paths to spiritual fulfillment. With every moment spent in this new freedom, I further embraced my role in this enlightening journey. I found strength in sharing my testimony, revealing the truth behind my fears and struggles. The urgency of my mission loomed large, and as I prepared to share my experiences with others, I understood that there would be challenges ahead. Confronting the spiritual war wasn't without risks. Inside, I continued to grapple with the deep-seated fear of rejection from my family and community. Yet, the need to advocate for truth above all else transformed my fear into a powerful force, propelling me forward as I sought to help others recognize the light of Jesus within themselves. The awakening was only just beginning, and I felt the beckoning call to continue pushing boundaries, reclaiming my narrative, as well as others who dared to step into the unknown. Years have passed since I took that daring leap into the unknown, but the journey has never wavered from my heart's pursuit of truth. Now, I reside in a refuge, a place dedicated to helping others on their spiritual journeys. Each day brings new faces, souls seeking understanding, much like I once was. My testimony is woven into the very fabric of this sanctuary. It reverberates with the power of transformation, of awakening, and of the undeniable presence of Jesus that changed my life forever. Yet even as I reach out to assist others, a thread of yearning remains for reconciliation with my family, a hope that softly tugs at my heart, deep within the shadows of what was left behind. Within these walls, I actively engage in conversations that ignite the flames of understanding and truth. The stories shared among us are often filled with pain and conflict, echoes of the spiritual war that so many face when breaking free from the constraints of tradition. I sit with individuals who wrestle with their beliefs, questioning the narratives fed to them. The hidden agendas that sought to enforce conformity over authenticity are laid bare before us, revealing how the elite manipulate spirituality to maintain control and power. Together, we confront these truths, offering one another the strength to confront our doubts and fears. In the quiet moments spent with those seeking guidance, I often reflect on my own awakening and the profound revelation I encountered during my near-death experience. Jesus stood before me, illuminating the dark corners of my heart and unveiling the deceptions that had long governed my understanding. I witnessed glimpses of a world where love and compassion reigned supreme, pushing back against the forces that thrive on fear and division. The contrast between that vision and the reality I see today fuels my resolve to advocate for those still trapped in a cycle of spiritual confusion. Yet, amid my passion for sharing the truth, I carry the weight of my family's rejection. I wonder if they ever think of me, if they question my absence, or if they merely accept my departure as a loss. The dichotomy of my current life, filled with hope, yet tinged with grief, reminds me of the cost of my commitment to Jesus, and the awakening I chose to embrace. I hold on to the belief that reconciliation is possible, that one day my family may find their way to the same understanding I've discovered. This hope fuels my mission. It reinforces the urgency to keep spreading the message of love and acceptance to the world around me. As I stand before this diverse community, each person carrying their burdens, I realize the depth of connection we share in our collective struggle. The truths we uncover together serve as a beacon, guiding us through the darkness of societal pressures and personal fears. My heart swells with the knowledge that this work is vital, not just for those seeking spiritual freedom, but for the future of humanity as a whole. The awakening isn't merely a personal journey, it's a movement that can spark change, confronting the deceptions that bind so many. I know that my voice, bent on sharing the light of Jesus, can illuminate paths obscured by doubt. And as I forge ahead, I remain steadfast in my commitment to this mission, ever hopeful for the day when my family may join me on the journey toward truth and awakening. As I reflect on this profound journey, I realize that every moment has led me to a singular truth. We are all threads in a grand tapestry, woven together by the continuous fight between light and darkness. The awakening I experienced was not an isolated event. It is a call to all of us, urging every soul to rise and recognize the greater battle at play. This world, cloaked in shadows of misunderstanding and fear, is on the precipice of transformation, but only if we dare to confront the deceptions that shackle us. Are you ready to step into the light? My encounter with Jesus reshaped every facet of my life, igniting a fierce urgency to share this truth with others. This isn't merely about me. It's about all of us embracing our roles in this cosmic struggle for authenticity and spiritual freedom. Have you felt the stirrings of a truth that resonates deep in your soul? A yearning that transcends what you've been taught? I invite you to share your thoughts and experiences in the comments below. Your story matters, and together, we can illuminate the shadows that persist in our lives. If this message resonates with you, please take a moment to subscribe to Truth from Beyond and hit the notification bell. It's crucial to be part of this community as we continue to delve deeper into the stories that shatter illusions and reveal the path toward awakening. What's coming next could change everything you thought you knew. In the next video, I'll be sharing another powerful testimony, one that unfolds the journey of someone who, like me, faced immense battles yet emerged with an unshakable faith. Join me, Amina, as we navigate this sacred journey together, reminding ourselves that the truth is always worth fighting for. Thank you for being here, for choosing to embrace this exploration of faith and truth. Remember, when we walk toward the light, we invite others to join us on this sacred path.